Wow, I'm actually shocked. Diddy is gonna walk. Looks like the verdict is in. The jury has spoken, and my prediction from yesterday's video ended up being 100% correct. And believe me, it was just a lucky guess. I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert on it. But what now? Well, Diddy was found guilty of 2 of the 5 charges, but not guilty of the only charges that really mattered. I predicted yesterday that they were stuck on the prostitution charges because they were the same crime committed twice and they were unsure if that would mean a RICO charge. That's why they were stuck. Turns out that looks to have been correct. Not guilty on charge 1, the racketeering conspiracy. Not guilty on trafficking, and not guilty on transportation to engage. No, that's not right. They mistyped that. He was not guilty on the trafficking charges. He's only found guilty of hiring prostitutes. That's it. As of while I'm recording this video, I may have a final answer on this. But as of right now, it looks like he's going to be released on bond today. Given he's already served a significant amount of time in prison for essentially prostitution charges, I don't see how you don't let him out. I mean, he's only been found guilty of prostitutes. So, I mean, are you going to give a first-time offender years in prison for that? That seems really unlikely. But let's go to some of the initial reaction breakdown. And then that way, at about minute 7 or 8 of this video, we'll get to the absolute latest in everything. Let's go to Fox News' cover. Here's the original. Here's Fox News.
Is being brought.
Jurors feel persuaded on that charge, whether they're going to find Diddy guilty.
Okay, we have breaking news here, CB, and I just want to tread just a little lightly on this because the jury is being brought into the courtroom now. They are seated in their seats where they have been now for the past 7 weeks. Remember that first charge?
I knew yesterday that they were going to come to an answer really quick this morning. We had the 4th of July coming in. They were all going to go home and think about it last night. So again, count 1, racketeering, not guilty. Count 2, trafficking, not guilty. Count 3, transportation to engage in, basically buying puss, guilty. Count 4, trafficking, not guilty. Count 5, the second prostitution charge, he was found guilty of. Now, obviously, the maximum sentence here is several years, but he's not getting several years for this. Like that's crazy. I would argue that most people probably aren't going to prison on a first offense of hiring prostitutes at all. So my prediction is now he's going to be set free with time served after sentencing. But look at this. So Diddy Combs found guilty on transportation for prostitution, but not guilty on the most serious charges. Combs was charged with 1 count racketeering, 2 counts of trafficking, 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. We all knew he wasn't going to beat the prostitution charges because the literal prostitutes testified against him. But what's interesting is how quickly this came about. And I want to go to the absolute, what does he actually face now? So Diddy could face a maximum of 20 years in prison if he was convicted on 2 prostitution charges, which would be bananas. There was zero precedent for that. I mean, I'm saying that confidently. There may be, but there is no way in heck they give him 20 years in prison for hiring prostitutes twice. Now, I guess it was multiple times and, but you don't go to prison on your first offense of hiring prostitutes. That's really rare. Each count he was convicted of has a maximum of 10 years and could theoretically be added together into a 20-year sentence. There is no minimum sentence for those charges of transportation to engage in prostitution or our Mann Act transportation. That's the thing. Like, if there were a minimum of 5 years, like the RICO charges, or 10 years, whatever that was, or a minimum of, X years, like in the trafficking cases, I would argue that Diddy was probably extraordinarily happy with these with this verdict. Diddy only found guilty on prostitution charges. And of course, Diddy nods head as verdict that acquitted him on the most serious charges were read out. He then held his hands in prayer gesture and waved them in the direction of the jury approvingly. I imagine if I were Diddy's lawyer, I would have been telling him, like, well, you probably, in terms of preparation, you're not getting off these prostitution charges. But the rest of them, I thought, well, who exactly were these women trafficked to? And you have all these text messages that said that they were, I'm really excited for our next freak off. When are we going to have our next freak off? I think to really get the conviction, they probably would have had to expose potentially other Hollywood names. Remember when this case started? The implication that was that everybody in Hollywood was implicated. Remember? Everybody in Hollywood was a suspect. They were all attending these parties, the freak-offs. Turns out, at least what we heard in court, none of them were implicated. Nobody was implicated. So who did he traffic them to? That was the ultimate, question. It was just like with, Jeffrey and his wife. Who did they traffic to? Because they didn't name anybody in court. Now, Diddy's lawyer has said the rapper should be released from jail now that he's been acquitted of the most serious charges. Diddy Combs' lawyer, Mark, is asking the judge to release the rapper from jail now that he's been acquitted of the most serious charges in the case against him. My proposal would be that he be released today, that he be permitted to live in his home in Florida. It would be a bond of whatever size Your Honor sees fit, maybe $1 million. As of 12 minutes ago, the judge has left the room. Loud cheers ring out in courtroom as Combs exits. After the judge left the room, Combs got on his hands and knees on the floor and appeared to pray to himself. His family and supporters then erupted in loud cheers after he stood up and blew a kiss towards them. Several of his attorneys hugged each other. Combs then exited the room through a side door as his family gave loud, supportive whistles. Now what? Well, the bombshell trafficking case against Diddy Combs turned out to be the most expensive prostitution trial in American history. Defense attorney and former prosecutor said Tuesday that the feds didn't secure a guilty verdict on racketeering count against a hip-hop mogul. The case would really only boil down to 2 prostitution charges. Like I've said all along, these cases will come down to racketeering. If the government does not get a RICO conviction, this will be a massive loss and the most expensive prostitution trial in American history. Rahmani predicted the outcome of the jury verdict, that they would only be able to convict the Bad Boy Records founder of the 2 counts of transportation, and they would acquit him on the trafficking charges. The lawyer said trafficking is difficult to prove because consent is a defense. And Combs' lawyers had shown a plethora of text messages that Combs accused were eager to participate in freak-offs or these hookup marathons. What a tremendous loss for the prosecution and a huge win for the defense. I mean, I don't know if we're going to get, an update on whether or not he's going to be released today. I suspect, honestly, if he's only guilty of prostitution, he should be let out of prison today. The fact that he served so long in prison just for prostitution charges is actually bonkers, if you think about it. And right now, it looks like he's going to be released today. I would argue, sure, the prostitution charges. Here you have Megyn Kelly.
Times reporting here, caller from inside the courtroom. Sean Combs is smiling as he shook one of his lawyer's hands and turned again to look at his family. He put his hands together in prayer and mouthed, thank you at the jury. That's the right thing to say, Sean Combs. He pumped his right fist. Yep, this is exactly the right attitude for Sean Combs, who just got away with serious felonies, in my view. He's guilty as sin, in my view, and this jury just gave him a total pass. They bought Mark Agnifalo's argument, it appears, the same one that did not work for Agnifalo in the Nexium sex cult case out of Albany.
Well, I would argue this. I never believed that they proved trafficking. I also never believed that they proved that any of these women were unwilling participants. So all that, if you go back to my video even yesterday or other videos on the Diddy case, you'll see that I've been consistent in saying they're not going to find him guilty. You know, it looked dire yesterday, and my prediction ended up being correct. Here's Viva Fry. I'm trying to find some of the, the most, the lawyers that I know, and there's not a lot of weighing in on it yet, but he should be out today. I'm not saying that he's not guilty of what they accused him of, but what I am saying is the jury found him not guilty, and the only thing they found him guilty of was prostitution, which big deal. Like, I mean, yes, it's bad, it's against the law, but you have willing participants here. People are saying it's not surprising. I don't know. The Southern District of New York generally, quote unquote, gets their man. And obviously Diddy has a mountain of civil lawsuits to worry about. Civil lawsuits, hundreds of millions of dollars. Who knows where those are going to play? But as of right now, court will reconvene this afternoon to discuss pre-sentencing conditions for Diddy. Letters from both defenses and prosecution are expected to the judge by 1 p.m. My prediction right now is that Diddy will leave the court today as a free man awaiting sentencing. I expect he won't get a sentence stiffer than what he's already served, but we'll see. We'll have an update video a little bit later today. I expect him to walk. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and we'll talk to you again real soon.